I actually would have just died in my room alone. Everyone, this is Faja, and I'm back today with another random story from my travels. This is a story that's pretty infamous with my friends and I, and it is the time when a piece of corn almost took me out my first week in Bali. Literally, I almost died. So, if any of you have been to Bali before or know anything about Bali, you probably have heard of Bali Belly, which is a pretty infamous type of food poisoning that is almost inevitable to get if you're gonna live there. I won't go into too much detail what it is right now, and I'll get into it in my story. So basically, it was my first week in Bali. I had just moved there alone, and I was trying to enjoy myself, get a bit acquainted with the area, so I decided I would walk to the beach. There was a beach that was like 5 or 10 minutes away from me, so no, maybe 15. So I would just walk there often and chill, and I didn't really know any people at that time. I knew a few people, so I just went there to hang out on my own. I get to the beach and I see that there's this guy grilling corn and selling it to people, and it honestly looks amazing. And I'm like, I kind of want some. The only thing about me, my dad is from Trinidad and Tobago, and he always used to talk about how he would be eating grilled corn on the beach, and that was like a big deal for him, and loved it. And I love corn already, so I was like, why not? So I get my corn. It cost like a few bucks, I think, maybe. It was super cheap, and it's honestly amazing. It has like some sort of like nice butter and like spices and seasonings on it, and it was honestly delicious. And then after this, I decided I'm gonna go to a restaurant and I have some like fried rice, and this is key to note, but I have this dessert that's like green. It's like some sort of coconut pancake type thing. And at that point, it was getting kind of late, and I think I was still a little bit jet lagged. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna head home. I don't really have anything else to do. Get an early sleep because I was gonna be DJing later that week. So I go back to my room and I'm starting to feel kind of tired, and I didn't realize it at the time, but it was actually like a sick tired. I was just kind of feeling drained. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna shower, go to sleep. So I'm laying down and I just pass out and fall asleep like right away. But then I wake up a few hours later and I'm like, I can feel it. Like, you have that feeling when your stomach is just like going kind of crazy and something's not right. And I don't know if this happens to other people too, but when I'm about to vomit, I can feel like an anxiety in my chest almost. Like my heart just starts like racing, and it's not fun. So I'm like, yeah, I definitely need to head to the washroom. I need to puke. This isn't good. So I run to the washroom and I pretty much just start puking for like hours. Literally, I think it must have been about 6 hours I was puking. It was just nonstop. And the thing to mention here too was that my puke was like green like the dessert I had earlier. So it was super weird. There's just like green sludge going all over my toilet. And I think at one point I actually had puked all over my floor, and I almost always make it to the washroom when I need to puke and hit the toilet. But this time it was actually so bad where I was on the floor laying down. I couldn't bring myself up. I'm just laying on my side, puking everywhere, and I'm trying to grab towels just to like clean it up, and I just can't stop puking. It was like literally the worst food poisoning I've ever had in my life. Now, after like hours of puking, I'm like super dehydrated and thirsty. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna grab some water, start drinking some of that. But then I immediately just puke it right away. I just could not keep it down. So I'm messaging my family, my parents, and I think they didn't see it until like hours later because of the time difference. But I'm like, man, this is not going well. Something's happening. I'm like, this is not right. I feel like I am dying. But I think to myself, I'm like, it's just food poisoning, right? Like, you know, don't be a bitch. I'm like, you're gonna be fine. Like, just tough it out. You know, usually like food poisoning I had in the past, that was more minor, like after a few hours or whatever, or maybe even 6 hours, like it starts to fade away and you start to feel better. But every time I drink water, again, I just keep on puking it up. So I decide I'm gonna call the doctors. I got travel insurance. My dad works in insurance, so he always insists that I have to buy it whenever I'm on the road. So I start Googling clinics. Meanwhile, I'm like rolling on my bed in tons of pain, and I'm trying to figure out which clinic to call, which is gonna be the best one, and I'm like, who's gonna come quickest? I have to like text them on WhatsApp, because if you know anything about Bali, everything is done on WhatsApp. So I'm texting multiple clinics. I'm like, which one's gonna get here the fastest? And also, I'm like, who's not gonna overcharge me? But at some point it became so painful, I'm like, I don't care, I'll pay anything at this point. So I find one clinic that says they can come, and the shortest they were gonna be was 2 hours. No one else could come sooner because Bali is also a 2-lane road everywhere you go. So if there's traffic, they are not coming for hours. It's just how it is. So I'm like texting them in pain. I'm begging you guys, please hurry, get here as fast as you can. And then I text my friend who was living on the same like guest house villa as me, the same area. And I'm like, can you open the front door? That way they can get in once they arrive. So I'm laying there, and then I can hear that someone went out through the gate and locked it again, because you're technically supposed to lock it every time you leave. And I'm like, shit, my friend's already gone. He can't go unlock it again. The landlord wasn't there either, and my friend's girlfriend wasn't there. So I'm on my knees. I crawl to the front door just to unlock it again, because I think they're gonna arrive soon. And I'm in so much pain. I crawl back to bed and lay there and wait for them. Turns out they actually weren't almost there. So I think like an hour later, they arrived, and the door did happen to still be unlocked, which was nice. So doctors finally arrive, and they walk in with all their equipment and kind of start to set up. Crazy thing was that like at this point, my limbs were going numb. Like I couldn't properly move my legs and arms, and I could just feel myself like start to fade. It was like craziest feeling I'd never really felt before. The doctors are kind of like asking me what exactly is going on, and I'm like struggling to talk to them. So they start hooking up like the IVs to me, and they're telling me like, we're gonna give you this kind of medicine in it, stuff for your stomach, this and that, and rehydrate you. So as they're doing this, my lips are literally going numb at this point. So my whole body was just going numb. Am I about to die? Like, what is happening? I'm like, this is insane. You're probably wondering like what was going on in my head. And it was actually kind of crazy and a little bit scary. There was a few things. So one, I thought this would happen to me, because I swear like the most random crazy shit always happens, stuff like this. And so it just seemed kind of fitting in my first week I would just get destroyed with this. Second thing, of course, was I was thinking about my family, because I'd been trying to text them, and I think at some point I had stopped responding because I just couldn't even hold my phone up. And then third thing, to be honest, I was kind of thinking about some people that I was having fights with that week, an ex, my old mentor, and I was really just thinking, I hope they know that I don't hate them. So these were all just some crazy thoughts that were going through my head, and it was really quite something to kind of wrestle with. As I got these IVs in me, this medicine, I slowly can feel my like life force start to come back. I feel my limbs start to return, and the pain in my stomach starts to go away, because it was like they were shoving needles into my stomach. The Bali belly felt like it was shoving needles into my stomach. It was some of the worst pain I've ever had, for sure. I was asking them like what exactly was going on, like why was I going numb? And apparently it's because I got so dehydrated that my organs actually started to fail. So my limbs stopped working. So basically, had I decided to tough it out and just not call the doctors like I was thinking of, I actually would have just died in my room alone. I actually learned recently that this happens relatively often. There's actually a lot of people per year that die from Bali belly. It happens pretty frequently to Australians, because there's a lot of Australians that travel to Bali. So honestly, you can find tons of news articles of just Australians dying from Bali belly. If you go to Bali, it's actually pretty inevitable that this is gonna happen, or at least if you live there, it's inevitable, because the first time I went, I never got it, but obviously once I lived there, I did. The severity will vary a bunch though. It's not always gonna be this extreme. So I should mention, 2 nights before that, I had a whole bunch of drinks going out with some people I just met. So I think after 2 days, I was still kind of dehydrated and probably tired. And that probably made it worse. So what do I recommend after this? I would say, make sure you always carry charcoal pills on you. My friend House of Panda had actually warned me to make sure to have them on me, and I just hadn't taken the time to go get them because it was just my first week there. I was still getting acquainted with the place. Charcoal pills, if you don't know, they will lash onto any toxins in your stomach and just absorb them, and then you just like shit them out. So always carry those if you're on the road. I literally always have a pack of them in my fanny pack now. Another thing, make sure you get travel insurance, because this bill actually came out to I think around $900 Canadian, and I heard there was actually cheaper people that could have done it, but if you are in the situation that I was in where you're just dying to get anyone, you don't want to just spend a whole bunch of money on the medical treatment. So just get insurance, honestly. I know some people that have gotten into more severe accidents while traveling, and then sometimes they get bills for tens of thousands of dollars. So honestly, it's always worth it. Another thing is be careful what you eat when you're in Bali. Do not eat street food. It's almost always unsafe, but honestly, eventually, if you're living there, you're gonna get Bali belly and you will actually build up a resilience. So at some point you can actually start eating street food. Near the end of my time in Bali, I was able to eat some. If you're planning on living in Bali, just know that it's pretty much a rite of passage. Also, another thing to know, you're not only gonna get it once, you're probably gonna get it multiple times. Like me, I got it 4 or 5 times. Apparently that's a lot. My friends have not gotten it that many times, so I don't know what I was doing wrong. But the good thing to note is that it does get less severe each time and a lot more manageable. You know, it went from almost dying, vomiting my guts out, to, you know, eventually your stomach's just kind of upset. Maybe you have diarrhea or something. If you're planning on going to Asia in general though, this is probably gonna happen. Actually recently got a case of salmonella while in Thailand, and that was actually almost as bad or maybe as bad as my first Bali belly experience. I think though the big difference was that I had not been drinking 2 nights prior, so it was a lot more manageable. My body was in a much better state, but it was super close. So if you're going to Asia, stay safe and be sure to prepare yourself with all those tips I recommended. So anyways, that is how I almost died in Bali from a piece of corn my first week there. If you have any questions, let me know. Be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you next time with some more stories from my travels.